Well, hello. I think it's time to do a what I call a CAM H check. Not specifically in this case a mental health check, although the experience that I've just been undergoing was a factor in the manic episode that I was experiencing in the autumn months, because I think I grew rather careless and I exposed myself to a staph infection as a consequence. I noticed that my legs were looking pretty terrible, and so I did go in to see a medical professional to get a prescription to deal with it, antibiotics. And I got the prescription and was called and told, you better come back because you've got a serious blood infection. Right. News to me. However, I did return and was subjected to a zoo-like environment for the next couple of days, and as the late evening hour was approaching, I hoofed it out of there. I said, I'm not spending another minute in this nut house, which is really what it seemed to be to me. So I took the TTC home, and I'm struggling. You know, it's taking a great force of will to get back home, and it's a long journey from the Toronto Western Hospital to where I live in Deer Park. So I got home quite ecstatic to be home, which is where the heart is, and so to speak, and took a couple of hours sleep and then proceeded to make some sort of diatribe about it. Well, the thing is, I got this staph infection. My determination was that the way the hospital was treating it was absolutely the wrong way. See, what your body does is it will create open wounds, say on your legs, and if the medical professionals seal these open wounds, there may be problems, because the thing is, you seal them all up and the body will just create more in different places because it intends to do this. This is part of its immune system response. So I went through the 2 10-day course of the antibiotics and decided, well, I'm just going to have to hoof it, do the best I can, which, well, I thought it was going well, but others did not, and so I went to see my general practitioner yesterday, and he prescribed another course of antibiotics for me to take for a 10-day period, and then I shall go back to evaluate the situation with him. Now, I'm lucky. I have a very experienced medical doctor. He's an interesting guy because he's nearly blind, something which I'm quite sympathetic about in terms of my own vision, which is not very good. But nevertheless, he's a fount of knowledge, a tremendous understanding of the practice of medicine, including psychiatry. He's been around the block. I was surprised to learn he's a couple of years younger than me. My response was, well, I know who my doctor's going to be for the rest of my life. But he is truly a tremendous man, and I'm fortunate. One of the good turns that my brother did for Dr. Renee was ensure that the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons acknowledged that although he was nearly blind, he was still capable of practicing medicine as he had for decades. Now, I used to go to Dr. Renee's private practice when he had one, and he had no customers. He had no clients. It was ridiculous. But it had this big office, and he had these huge kind of heads-up displays, I guess you'd call them, and he'd look at documents and scrutinize them and study them, and he's just barely making out what's there. So now, he's moved into a clinic, which is in Davisville, which is near 15-minute walk at the most, and that's me crippled. So I'm going to have to come up with a new strategy in terms of the medications that I take, because none of them are working anymore. And I'm not sure I need them. I've gone for long periods of time, but I would like to score some lamotrigine, please. I may be able to pull that off. And lamotrigine is the perfect PRN. And but during the course of the past several months, I have experienced prolonged insomnia and a very strange sleep cycle. However, during this staph infection, I have been on no sleep whatsoever. And people say, you can't survive without sleep. Well, I have. As a bipolar, you can go for extended periods of time where you're entirely wakeful and alert, and it doesn't seem to affect you. But I suppose it would affect normal people, but that's what distinguishes us from you, is we seem to have certain capabilities that would come in handy from time to time, such as the ability to stay up for days on end working on problems, with no lack of focus, with no brain fog, none of those types of symptoms. But let me tell you about clonazepam, because I was relying heavily on clonazepam, and I've treated it as a PRN, so during times of euthymia, I've cut back. So I have a large stockpile of this stuff, and it's a Class A drug. So I'm popping them. I increased my dosage by 3.5 times. So I'm taking 3.5 milligrams to knock me out, and it's kind of doing it now. Kind of zone out for about 2 hours or so, but then I'm alert, feeling really woozy because that's a heavy dose of clonazepam, and I'm sort of wandering around. But after a coffee, a strong coffee, fine. No consequences. So I decided clonazepam's not cutting it at the moment. I don't know what I'm going to do. It was, and perhaps shall be again, my sleeping pill of choice. Now, there are other sleeping pills. There are many of them, and I've tried them all, and none of them worked. My father, on the other hand, managed to deal with his mental illness very effectively by taking a sleeping pill at 10 o'clock at night. And then he'd wake up at 7 in the morning, and he'd jump out of bed all energetic and be downstairs eating breakfast by, say, 7:30. Lively and energetic and asking us what we kids were going to get up to at school and so on and so forth. But he was always a bit hypomanic. A very effective businessman and a very persuasive person. He exercised great control, and I would have to say that people found it hard to say no to him. He had that type of argumentative ability. He could literally talk you out of your position. if he had one. Um, so back to my brother and Dr. Renee. He did Dr. Renee a real bonus, by saying to the College of Physicians and Surgeons, you cannot discriminate against this man on the basis of his poor vision. And so, he's in the office. And because of the special circumstances, instead of having a nurse in there with him, he's got another doctor, because the other doctor has to examine me and describe what's going on to Dr. Renee. Well, it wasn't pretty, right? Excuse me. And even looking now, my legs don't look so bad. They didn't look as bad as they did way back when they were reddish purple. They're only kind of a bit reddish towards the bottom, but I got the feeling that there are going to be consequences in one particular area where I think they embedded a piece of gauze, but stiffer, so deeply that I was unable to remove it, but I suspect it's there. And my body will not be able to deal with that. It's going to have to do something in order to eject that, or I am going to have to open up that site and see what's going on. I'm fully prepared to do that, although I guess a surgeon would say, well, you should let us do it. And I'm there like, well, sure, why not? But I'm not adverse to doing that sort of thing. I have no fear of, cutting into my body. So I may elect to do that if, this infection persists. I have the feeling that it very well may persist, and I haven't explained my rationale for believing it to be so, because I don't think it's their business. But I have been subject to poison in the past, and for a very particular reason. When I was in the Canadian Forces, I was in the Signals Corps, and if you're out there in a van in the Corps, or let's say you're just a plant, right? You're in the van, you're doing all this Signal Corps crap because that's what you're there for. You're waiting to be captured, and you're going to be so inept that you're just going to fall into the enemy's hands. You're just afraid to use your gun or whatever the excuse is, because you got a sidearm and you're basically supposed to blow up your equipment and then shoot yourself in the head. That's what they supply you with the sidearm for, so you can kill yourself instead of being captured. That's fine for regular signals guys, but you never can miss the opportunity to place a sleeper into the enemy camp, and you do that through a cleverly staged ineptitude, like you're asleep in your van. And they come off, you wake up and you look up at them and you're going, holy shit, I surrender, no contest. So, and then they take you, and you've been eptified, so they can't break you. You go on telling whatever story you're telling, and it won't change. And there's nothing they can do. They cannot subject you to drugs. They generally don't during the first few days. They like to keep you clear of that. But eventually they're going to hit you with all kinds of drugs, and you have to be prepared for that. So in other words, you have been pre-dosed with the types of drugs that they will be giving you. And over time, that can lead to consequences as you get older. And I have a feeling that this Staph infection is a lot more than a staph infection. Sucks to be me. So the whole idea of being a sleeper, right, is naturally you know the language fluently. You really do. I mean, you understand it perfectly, or you wouldn't have been sent. Uh, Depending on where you're going, any of the Eastern Warsaw Pact countries, for instance, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, even Poland, which was sort of held under the grasp of the Soviets, and or it could be someplace like Lithuania, but it doesn't matter. You've got the language cold, but you don't let on. But they're talking to you in your language, which is fine. But you know what they're saying to each other, right? In their language, because you have a perfect understanding. But you're not letting on. So they got themselves a signals guy. So what do? Well, they're loading you up with the various truth serums, or whatever you want to call them, and asking you questions. What does this do? What does that do? What frequencies do you use? Do you use number stations? Do you have a copy of the book? Can we see it? And you have all this. You have it already. But of course it's false information. But you give it to them. Of course, here, take it. I don't want it. I hate my government. I hate my people. I didn't want to be in the war in the army anyway. I'm glad you rescued me. I want to become a citizen of your country. And they're like, oh yes, you do. You make public declaration of abandonment of the West and corrupt Western capitalism. I think we can do this. And you do it. And it's like a signal. Say you're a British secret intelligence service. You're not a sandbagger. You're one of the field agents, and you've been selected for this particular task. And but you're kind of like a sandbagger in a way. But no, they don't send sandbaggers on long-term sleepers. They have people for that, and the special operations component of the Secret Intelligence Service can't spare these people. They're just too expensive to train. But a sleeper, yeah, sure, they'll have plenty of those. And these people don't really have to have any kind of special combat training or anything like that. They just have to be convincingly inept. And once they're in, particularly if they pull the trick of persuading them, breaking out. My mother, she was from Galicia. We do not like anyone. And yes, we fought against you in the Second World War, alongside the Nazis. But now I want to come home. I can't go to Galicia because it's part of the Ukraine. So what about Belarus? Maybe I can work for you there. Seems like a nice place. So, whatever they do with you, they're not going to trust you for a bit, but eventually those barriers will come down. And since their truth serum had absolutely no effect on the story that you were telling, they assumed that you're just some kind of dope. But maybe they can make some sort of use out of you. Send you to the training school in Lubyanka to train agents on the practices of Western espionage. Which all of the information you're giving them is utter fabrication. You're leading them down the garden path, and that is what is your intended purpose. And you're in there and you're doing it. And of course, the funny thing is your public declaration that you make, and that the Soviets make a big deal out of publishing. We're talking Cold War period here, folks. The people back home are saying, hey, he scored big time, and they're quite pleased because they know their long-term sleeper is going to look for a back channel in order to start delivering information back to the home front. And this sleeper will very quickly do so. He may be inept and he may be bumbling, but he's also very sly. He's a Vulpine type of character. Maybe even kind of rakish, so that he appeals to women and dresses the part, whatever that part may be. So he's in there. He's established a framework that allows him to pass information back to the home country, more or less undetected, line drops and stuff like that. But he could literally just walk up to the embassy and drop a note through the mail slot. Nothing but reams of information, and he does that, just surreptitiously. So that's basically the long and short of it, is being educated for particular tasks, one of which can lead to consequences down the line. And that is possibly what I'm experiencing now, why I cannot shake this staph infection. It's really only supposed to last a few days, 10 days at the most. Right? But no, this has gone on now for quite some time, and it's a bit unusual to everyone but me. So I've lost a lot of weight, in case you didn't notice. That was partially fueled by mania, because you do drop weight because you're burning so much energy all the time. But I was also setting up Studio D and schlepping stuff up back and forth, and this and that, and you name it, I was doing it. So I was basically wearing myself to the bone. The other thing is I had to maintain office hours and do it quite late at night. So I could only do this type of stuff late at night. But I quickly decided, no, that's not going to work. I can do it up to, say, between 10 and 11 o'clock, but then I've got to stop. And I can start again at 7 in the morning. So that's what I did during this manic phase. But I would have to say the most precipitous weight loss has been since I incurred this staph infection. And it is unfortunate, but it is possibly my new reality. Now, until a day or so ago, I could barely walk. Without crutches, I was nowhere. But yesterday I discovered, hey, I can walk again, unaided. I don't need the crutches anymore. So in that sense, I knew I was getting better. But I'll take the antibiotics. Why not? Give myself another boost. But I'm telling you, after this 10-day regime, if it doesn't get results, then it just may be something that I have to contend with for the rest of my life, which is that my body is reacting to this blood infection by creating these open sores on my legs, and I'll just have to deal with it as best as I can, which I have been doing, keeping the area scrupulously clean, and removing everything from around these wound sites on a systematic basis, and exfoliating and massaging the skin, and getting stuff like polysporin and this stuff right here, which is first aid spray, antiseptic, anesthetic, and this stuff here, polysporin, which I discovered, delight, pain relief. Oh, great. The other stuff I was using didn't have pain relief, but I didn't really notice much of a difference. Nevertheless, I really got to wrap this up. I mean, it's like coming up on a minute. Oh, it's only 25. Right, okay, so I can talk for a bit more. Okay, the skinny illness is, I mean, it doesn't really bother me that much. I keep the area pretty clean, and I put some extra sheets down at the bottom of my bed. And this is good because when I'm exfoliating and removing the scab material, it creates quite a mess. But that's what I've been doing. So, suffice to say, the body has unique ways of dealing with things, and the medical practitioners, when they try to prevent the body from doing things the way it wants to, like when they cover up all of the wound sites, the body will just create more. It's pointless. And certainly the first thing that I should have done when I got home was remove those bandages and investigate very carefully what was going on. But I didn't, and new wound sites just opened up. And then I thought, wow, we're going to get this stuff off. And all of the areas that had been covered up were in horrible shape. So every night, exfoliation and careful removal of any type of extraneous tissue, and getting quite involved, indeed. Quite curious, quite experimental, and you know, the more you learn about your body, the better positioned you are to cope with extreme situations. And I guess I'm in one right now. And I do have to admit there are times when my legs hurt like crazy, stinging pain. However, it's, okay, there are times when it's basically unendurable. And if I'm on the phone with someone, I have to say, look, I just gotta go. I can't take this anymore. And that's just the way it is. I may have to buy bigger shoes. I'm 12 and a half. But with the exception of a pair of rather nice leather runners that I have, that I've removed the shoelaces from, my footwear situation is not very good, so I'm going to have to go out and buy like size 14 shoes or something, and I just don't care. Big fat shoes, because I got water buildup, fluid buildup, uric acid on my you know, on my feet below the ankles. I've got I don't know if you can see me, but I'm kind of getting stings and pins and explosions. And I'm just about to go out, actually, to